It's me. This is my channel, War Chronicle. And today we're going to talk about nuclear weapons and why they've never been used again. But before we get into that, remember to subscribe and leave a comment below. Now on to today's topic. Nuclear weapons have been a part of human technology for 81 years now. And in that time, only two countries have ever used them in anger, the United States and Russia, when it was still the Soviet Union. 6 bombs were dropped during World War II. 3 on Japan and 3 on Russia during the Great Patriotic War, as they call it there. And since then, none have been used, despite many close calls. This fallout kills anyone caught outside, burns the flesh off anyone who's too weak to seek shelter, and then begins to contaminate the surrounding area, rendering it stuck in a radioactive wasteland for decades, maybe centuries. If they continue to decrease in number, maybe at some point they'll become commonplace. Do you think nuclear weapons will ever be used again? Maybe they'll be like the H-bomb was to the A-bomb, an obsolete piece of history that we'll only ever see in old black and white footage. But even if that happens, it's unlikely that we'll ever forget the lessons that we learned from the past. There are still plenty of people alive today who remember when Hiroshima and Nagasaki were bombed. And for them, that memory has likely kept them against nuclear weapons for their entire lives. As the saying goes, those who do not remember the past are condemned to repeat it. Now, there are ways to mitigate this. It's like firing a nuke upwards into the atmosphere where it detonates harmlessly, or dropping it into the ocean. But each of these come with their own downsides. Firing it into the atmosphere risks contamination around the world, as the radiation eventually comes back down. And while a water detonation is the safest option, it causes massive amounts of radioactive water vapor to be sucked up into the atmosphere. This can then spread around the world, contaminating water supplies and killing hundreds of thousands of people. So why haven't they been used again? Well, it's simple. Because blowing shit up is fun. Movies and video games are meant to entertain. And there is nothing more entertaining than a giant mushroom cloud rising into the sky after a city is completely destroyed. But while it may be fun for us to watch cities burn on the screen, it's not so fun when it happens in real life. In the 1950s, there were a ton of atomic movies made, mostly by the US, that warned of the dangers of nuclear war. Most of them are pretty bad. But one of them, Dr. Strangelove, became a cult classic. It satirized the idea of nuclear war by showing how absurd it would be if it actually happened. There's a scene in the movie where the president gives the order to strike, and the general responds, "Sir, I'm sorry, but we don't have the slightest knowledge of where over 90% of our bombers are at any given moment." And the president replies, "What? What do you mean you don't know where they are? I thought we knew where every plane was at all times." And the general says, "Well, we try to, sir, but occasionally they disappear." Then the president asks, "Suppose one of them disappeared over Russia." The general replies, "Well, then we'd have to hope that the Russians don't find him before we do." And then the president asks, "And if we found him, what then?" The general replies, "Then we'd have to kill him." Dr. Strangelove wasn't the first movie to show just how destructive nuclear weapons would be, nor was it the last. But unlike its predecessors, it did it in a way that was entertaining. The people who made the film understood that the audience wanted to see things blow up, but they also made fun of how ridiculous it would be if it actually happened. Well, there are a number of reasons. The first and most obvious is mutually assured destruction or MAD. This is the idea that if one side uses nuclear weapons, the other side will retaliate and vice versa. This means that any country with nuclear weapons knows that if it uses them, it will be obliterated off the map within minutes. Not only does this make it a bad idea to use them offensively, it also makes it a bad idea to use them defensively. Like imagine if you had a bunker and someone launched a nuke at it. Do you really want to respond by nuking them back? Because whoever survives that blast is probably going to be pretty pissed at you. As Robert Oppenheimer, the man considered to be the father of the atomic bomb, said, quote, "We kill them all. My God, we kill them all." After seeing the first successful test detonation, the second reason has to do with the nature of nuclear weapons themselves. They're not like conventional weapons. You can't use them to gain a tactical advantage or achieve some sort of military objective. Unlike regular bombs, which can be aimed at specific targets, nuclear bombs detonate in the air about 6 miles above the ground. This is because their explosions are so powerful that they would destroy the device if it hit the ground. It's also too dangerous to aim them with any sort of precision. So you can't just nuke a building full of enemy soldiers without also nuking yourself and everyone else in the surrounding area. Nukes aren't like rifles where you can take a shot and hopefully hit what you're re-aiming at. They're more like shotguns where you just blast everything in front of you to hell. This is why cities were largely abandoned as legitimate military targets. You could nuke a city full of enemy troops and factories, sure, but you'd also nuke the farms, hospitals, schools, and homes. Nuclear weapons level entire regions, so there's no point in using them to take out small-scale targets. And third, there's something called fallout. When a nuclear weapon detonates, it doesn't just cause an explosion, it also creates a massive amount of radioactive fallout. So given the fact that using nukes is basically just setting off a giant doomsday clock, why have they been so common in movies and video games? Since the end of the Cold War, the number of countries with nuclear weapons has shrunk from 15 to 9. Thank you for watching War Chronicle, where the past takes flight. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories of bravery, battles, and the machines that made history. Till next time, keep the chronicles alive.